This week we're diving into some hot stories shaking the creative scene. A rock legend's warning about AI copyright law, the streaming giant quietly navigating AI-generated artists, and the real nuts and bolts of how AI is remixing music production itself. That's coming up right now.
This is your weekly Tech Art News Update with your host, Chris Mesnaric.
Welcome back to We Are the Machine, the show where AI meets artistry and the future of creativity is in full view. My name is Chris, your guide through the weird, wonderful, and sometimes worrying world of AI's impact on music, film, writing, and visual art. So let's get right into it with our first story. Legend to some, Peter Garrett. Midnight Oil's Peter Garrett just dropped a bombshell about AI and artists' rights. If you don't know Midnight Oil, they are an Aussie rock band famous for anthems like Beds Are Burning, How Can We Sleep While Our Beds Are Burning, which was a song about indigenous land rights, and another song, Blue Sky Mine, which is about environmental issues. So Garrett's voice is as powerful as ever. He's always been a commentator, but now he's raising the alarm about AI, copyright, and culture. So the gist is basically, as we spoke about in the last episode, Australia's government is considering legal changes that would basically let AI companies mine text and data from music, journalism, and art without compensating creators, basically scraping the internet. Garrett calls this roadkill for artists, warning that big tech could exploit Australia's cultural treasures without paying royalties or respecting creative labor, which has been the common theme with the arguments against AI stealing copyrighted materials off the internet, quote, stealing. So if you think about it like this, imagine you write a hit song, then a robot swoops in, copies your work, and makes money off of it, all while you get pennies or nothing at all. So, that's the musician's opinion. Garrett's not alone. Fellow Aussie musicians Missy, Higgins, and Julian Hamilton are also pushing back. So they're demanding real protections, not the light touch regulations that are favoring corporate AI giants. So why does this matter to you as a creator? Because if laws bend too far in favor of AI mining, it might risk turning your work into free raw material, devaluing creativity and livelihoods everywhere. So it's a cultural and economic clash unfolding right now. So what do you think about AI and copyright? Should artists be paid every time an AI learns from their work? Hit me up in the comments or in social. Let's talk. I think it's going to be tough to parse out exactly where and when it's using it. How do you exactly know? Is it every time somebody asks a question or generates an image, you get a piece because you're in the data set? It's really a tough idea to work out. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So on a similar topic, the next thing we're talking about is Spotify. So the famous streaming platform, it has a new question bubbling under the surface. Why aren't they labeling AI-generated music? So there's been chatter that Spotify might be quietly developing AI-created artists of their own. So some speculate that openly labeling AI tracks could make listeners skeptical or less engaged, potentially hurting new AI-driven acts before they even get a chance to prove themselves. So instead of AI tracks maybe slipping through unmarked, and blending in with human-made tunes, it starts raising some ethical questions potentially. Should listeners know what humans made and what machines made? And what about human artists whose work might be overshadowed or confused with AI, especially on a platform like Spotify, where it's already very difficult to make money, competing, and you basically have to sell elsewhere to make money. Unlike some emerging platforms experimenting with transparency, Spotify and a few others are remaining very quiet about it. So if AI musicians become mainstream, we're looking at a potential shakeup in how music is marketed, consumed, and valued, and some think that artists could get lost in the shuffle. So it's kind of like if you went into a gallery and half the paintings were done by robots, but no one told you which. So how would that change your experience and your connection? It's an interesting way to look at it because we possibly don't really know what we're going to think about all this in the future. So marking it now might end up being a moot point because, it's going to start to blend between fully AI, no AI, somewhere in the middle, and then you can start with the question of should they have labeled, techno music or other musics that were using digital things and non-real drums or beat machines because that wasn't, quote, real. So I think it's kind of like a similar metaphor to it. It's obviously not directly the same thing, but there are echoes there that I think, can help possibly calm some of the doomer talk on that end. So are you cool with AI music slipping through under the radar? Do you want full disclosure? Do you make AI music and don't want it labeled? You do want it labeled? Let me know in the comments. Shoot me an email. I'd love to talk about it. So now let's get specific about how AI is actually changing music production from start to finish, not just the actual creating and generating of it from start to finish. So they're popping up in all the studio workflows. So for creators, musicians, songwriters, then you have mixers, mastering engineers. There's a bunch of things. So we'll start just with the songwriting. If you take songwriting, tools like Amper Music and AIVA, AIVA, help composers generate chord progressions, melodies, full arrangements from simple prompts. So beyond just the writing, producers are using AI-powered plugins inside their DAWs, so in like Logic X, and then Pro Tools, and you have Isotope Neutron for intelligent mixing suggestions. So I've used in the past Isotope, Ozone for mastering, I believe Neutron. They have some really good products, and they're already incorporating it into the actual system itself. And then there's Lander, LANDR, which is for AI-driven mastering that gives tracks a polished, radio-ready sound without needing a pro engineer. So mastering engineers can be expensive, and a lot of people can't often hear the change, even though it's important for the final mix and all that. But now there is an AI assistant for people that are on a budget. So then there's also an AI-assisted sound design. So for example, Endless lets musicians improvise and loop collaboratively with AI-generated beats and effects in real time. So that's blending human creativity with machine suggestions. So imagine, you have one of your musicians is a robot and three of you aren't. That's an interesting dynamic. That's some freaky future stuff. You're just jamming and there's an AI right there. And then you play drums, he plays bass, you play guitar, and it's doing its thing on keyboards or whatever. So on the mastering front, services like Lander again and Cloud Bounce analyze your tracks and apply EQ, compression, and limiting automatically. And that's often going to be faster and cheaper than traditional mastering studios. So some producers are still preferring human mastering, obviously, and probably most at this moment, but for that nuanced touch. But many indie artists are relying on AI mastering to get professional results on a budget. And when you think about it, so much music exists that's been mixed that feeding it into a data set and telling it you need it to sound like this, EQ and that other stuff is relatively, I think, duplicatable. Now, I think you might lose some of the specific changes and some little human differences, obviously, but that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. So let's not forget about AI changing collaboration and remix culture as well. So there's a platform called Splash, which allows users to isolate the stems. So, the bass, the drums, and further deep, however you can go, and create remixes with AI. So it's making it a lot easier than ever for non-producers to engage creatively. So it's kind of a little bit of a step up, possibly, from downloading beats that people created. I mean, people have created that, but at least this way now the musician, the rapper, or whatever gets to create the beat themselves, even if they don't have too much knowledge of a DAW like Logic or Pro Tools. So artists like Taryn Southern is one of the first musicians to actually embrace AI tools publicly. So that's an interesting part. She's incorporated AI-generated melodies and harmonies into their work, blending human emotion with the algorithmic creativity. So these guys are going full force with it and letting you know they're not hiding it. They don't want to be caught with it. They're just telling you they're using it up front. So AI isn't just, it's not replacing musicians, at least in this capacity. It's kind of expanding their toolkit, it seems. It accelerates the mundane tasks, suggests creative directions. It's opening doors for artists who might not have formal training or expensive gear, which is another further step than we took from, even 30, 40 years ago when we became able to do things on our home computers and you didn't need a full studio. So this is just yet another step closer to that. So the question becomes, how do you keep your soul in the music while leveraging AI's power? So again, it's a new kind of dance. It's a new kind of discussion, same as the old discussion, where human intuition leads, and where does AI fit into that? So have you guys tried any AI plugins or mastering services in your music? What tools do you swear by or avoid? Drop a comment. Let me know. I'm really interested in these things. I haven't really used too many on my actual mixing myself. I'm still pretty much flying by a lot of the older tools that I've had. So I'd be interested to see what you guys are using. That's one I'd really like to jump into. Our next story is Moises Music AI. So AI's latest update, it's basically, imagine having a studio-grade audio engineer in your laptop without even needing an internet connection now. So this is an interesting piece. We're starting to get the LLMs that are not needing a cloud, which are going to be small language models potentially. That's not exactly necessarily what this is, but it's kind of leading us in that direction. So in there, the live feature lets you isolate the vocals, drums, bass, or any other instrument live as the tracks play. So it's like having X-ray vision for the music, which is a pretty interesting thing, especially live instruments. So for musicians, this basically means you can practice perfectly by muting or boosting tracks. If you're a drummer and you want to practice with, say Led Zeppelin, you can take out Bonzo and play yourself. Karaoke, this is a great thing for people. Take out the vocals, sing the lead. DJs and remixers can craft fresh mixes on the fly, which traditionally have been a lot tougher to separate, if even possible. A lot of times you have to get the official stems from the original artists. Obviously, you're not going to be stealing these things, but with permission, it should be a lot easier than having to go way back in the archives. And having fresh stems to master is a unique thing as well. And the offline feature is a big step. It's showing again that AI tools are moving from the cloud, to your personal workspace, making creative tech more accessible, reliable, private. So you're not, feeding the LLM to other people. You're doing it in your own place. If you're creating from your own music covers or whatever it is you're doing, and not having to rely on Wi-Fi is just a cool thing. So have you ever dreamed of dissecting your favorite song piece by piece? If you're a mixer, just being able to hear pieces. If you're a musician that you want to play, what track would you break down with Moises Live? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think about this whole thing. And then our final story is going to be about YouTube, which is YouTube's new AI music assistant, which is a tool that is going to be a game changer for creators who need quick royalty-free music. So again, we're probably going to have a lot of people complaining, some of the creators that make some of the, background beats, some of the royalties they get, and they sell to the companies that you can buy from for background stuff or whatever it is. So instead of having to now scour endless libraries, or paying for pricey licenses, or basically hearing the same song on your video, which you can often hear multiple times, the same obviously chosen songs, you just have to prompt something, energetic pop for a workout video, and the AI is going to give you a bunch of tracks to take a look at, download, and add to your video, and you're done. So for indie filmmakers, TikTokers, and podcasters, that basically means no more music licensing headaches or copyright strikes, which is a big thing. Even if you're legitimate, sometimes there's people on YouTube that have gone in and captured the royalty structure and are able to bring you down even with public domain stuff. So there's tricks there, and this helps get you past any of that problem. So in this instance, I'd be interested in what you guys think. It's not creative music. It's not, quote, I don't want to say art, but it's, it's not somebody's soul. It's background music for a podcast. What do you feel about losing that job? So it's also a glimpse into how AI is going to become baked into the platforms that, where we actually make the content and we share it. So it's going to democratize creativity. It might lower the bar a little bit, make it more, making it more accessible is going to make it more well known. So it's going to raise a lot of questions on these platforms. Things are starting to get baked in the creative places, in plugins, in Adobe Firefly, and now with YouTube. So could you trust an AI to score your next video? Does it matter to you, or is that an important part of what you do if you are a creator of that kind? Or would you prefer the human touch? And I'd really like you guys to think about it, because some people might knee jerk to the human touch, which I can understand. But if you really get down to it, do you feel you're missing something if it comes from an AI generation in a background piece of music? So that's going to be a wrap on this week's We Are the Machine news update. So we went from rock legends fighting for artist rights to AI weaving your playlist in studios and creating landscapes that are shifting. So, whether you love it or fear it, AI is here to stay. So if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your creative crew. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and whenever you're able to, please reach out, send us a message, let us know what you're thinking about, what you'd like to cover. And until next time, keep on making, keep on questioning, and we are the machines.
You are listening to Send It On Back, an original song by That Great State, as covered by
The Machines.